Welcome to Hairstreamtv in NYC. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Business owners, and that makes me very happy. Hoping that you'll enjoy this video and it'll somehow inspire all of you entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah, they can easily vote.
Dapper Dan, Harlem. And, oh,
Oh my goodness. I can't move forward though until we talk about these shoes. Oh. Can we just can we get a little applause for this?
Yeah.
That is something
Gucci kickaroos.
Speaking of Gucci, we might have to get to that later, Deb. First of all, thank you guys for coming out. It's such an honor for me to sit here next to the one, the only, someone that I have looked up to for so many years and also look forward to championing and supporting in the years to come, because there's a lot of exciting things happening in Dapper Dan's life. So if you guys could give him another warm welcome. Just looking around the room here at the Creator Awards, it's evident from some of the style that I see in the audience. You guys already know who Dapper Dan is, what he's accomplished, what he's contributed, and how he is the culture. So I don't think that we need to spend too much time on just your biography. The other thing is that Dap is putting out a memoir where you can get that full story. And when is that memoir coming out?
It should be out by next September, October, during the fall of next year.
What is it going to be called?
Oh, we know it. We haven't decided on exactly what it's going to be called, but I guarantee you it's going to be exciting.
Okay.
And it's going to be very exciting. It's going to be basically about fashion and the history of Harlem and how everything led up to what's going on with my life today.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I had to dig. I was trying to get him to tell us what the title is before it comes out, but I'll back off and just be and just have the normal conversation. Yeah. Now, I want to talk about, you know, kind of if you can paint a picture. What was Harlem like, style-wise, when you were coming up?
Let me contrast it to what's going on today, where you see the hip-hop artists have a heavy influence on what style is today. Well, it was no different during the time when I was growing up. Basically in Harlem we had two dress styles, because the community in Harlem, we had a three-level community in Harlem. We had what would be considered like the favelas.
Okay.
And then we had, which is what I grew up in, and then we had like a project community, which was a step up, and then we had a middle-class community. So there was two basic dress styles when I was growing up, and one was called the Ivy League style, and the other was called the hustler style. Of course, the guys who grew up like myself, we couldn't afford the Ivy League look, and our mentality was a little different. We was the guys from the other side of the track. So our influences was different. So, like the hip hop style, like the artists today and how they influence, the early influences on the Harlem that I grew up in was like movie stars. In terms of movie stars, it was James Cagney, Humphrey Bogart, George Raft, all the gangsters of that era.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and so all the older guys dressed like them. They even had sayings like, "Yo, you trying to Bogart me?"
Yeah.
Or you trying to Cagney me? Because these guys was the epitome of what the people who I grew up with thought of as manhood. So now, then you had the other stars, which would be like the Rat Pack, Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah.
Or Nat King Cole. And those who were all involved in Rat Pack. The stores that they shopped at was like Cy Martin's, Phil Cronfield, Layton's. And so, unlike today, those stores was the stores that influenced us. And I don't know if you guys saw my documentary where, you know, the famous guy, Pee Wee Kirkland, and he had a group of guys called Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. When you hear them talk about throwing garbage cans through the window to go get their clothes, those were the stores where they got them. So the big influence on fashion during that time was the Rat Pack, and James Cagney, Humphrey Bogart, George Raft, and that filtered down to what we have today. So when I opened up the store, I realized that the influence came from powerful figures. So by me coming from the poorest neighborhood, I had to identify who was the major influences in my neighborhood. I knew I wasn't going to get the middle class, so the only market that was open up to me, the only consumer market that was open up to me was the people who had the power in my neighborhood, and those were the hustlers.
Right.
And of course, it was a time in the crack epidemic when there was so much money floating in the street. So what I did was I catered my style on what they would like.
But you know what's interesting is that the style that you're describing, pre-Dapper Dan's boutique, sounds kind of formal. It sounds a lot of men's tailoring.
Yeah.
You were mentioning old Hollywood. I mean, I never knew where the term Bogart comes from, and that's like head crack. I'm trying to get past that.
Yeah.
But it definitely seems like a very tailored, old world look. When you opened your boutique, and then when you were catering to a lot of these hustlers that we see these iconic photos of, Alpo, Rich Porter, that the style that they were coming to you for, I wonder, did you create it? Because it was much more what we see as streetwear and street style now, much more casual, but with luxury fabrics. So if you can kind of talk to me about how did you come up with that style? How did that style develop?
Well, what happened is that what I noticed was that people wanted to identify with being richer than what they really are. Mm-hmm. So I looked for those things. When I first opened my stores, I concentrated on just furs and leathers. But I needed an additional market that would allow me to service them all year round. And one day, a customer came in with a Louis Vuitton pouch full of money, and everybody got excited about the pouch and the money, of course. So, and I saw how excited they was about that pouch, and I said to myself, if they're excited about that pouch, maybe I need to study exactly what it is about that pouch. And then when I noticed that the symbols on it, so I said, maybe if I give them more symbols and make them clothes with the symbols all over them, they would be even more excited about wearing them. And so that gave birth to this whole logomania concept that I cashed in on.
Wow. You know, I think that there was a time when people identified wealth with tailoring and with the formality of menswear, but you were basically showing that it could be a very casual, it could be a jacket, it could be a jogging suit, but made in logo print or made in fur. It took on that wealth and that aspiration without formality, right?
Yeah. Actually, prior to that, they had in Harlem there was Walmart that did tailoring, and there was one famous guy who came before me. His name was Oris.
Okay.
And Oris did all the tailoring. The problem with tailoring is that you could not identify whether it came from someplace exclusive or not. The exception was with the logos is like you knew where this came from.
Right.
So therefore it meant. So it was automatic props if you would have something with that logo on it.
Did you always identify certain logos as being of value in Harlem? Was it always about a Louis Vuitton logo, Fendi, MCM? Like, what were the icons of logos?
Well, the ruling logo at the time was Louis Vuitton, and then later on, Gucci was always co-equal to Louis Vuitton, but the fascination with Gucci is like the webbing and the different colors you could work with Gucci, as opposed to Louis Vuitton. It was in Uptown style. It was just too plain compared to the things that you could do with Gucci, MCM, you could, with the symbols and the way you could do the webbing and all of it. But Louis Vuitton had the prestige, but it just didn't have the amount of variables that you could work with to make something different each time.
I'm sure it wasn't lost on you then, back in the day, that webbing, that iconic Gucci webbing, was red, black, and green.
Yeah.
And you have talked about how you sort of had an approach to fashion which was Africanizing of the fashion
Yeah.
you had.
The Africanization of the fashions that I did at the time was to, I don't know if you ever saw, Sugar Ray Robinson was really popular in Harlem, and there's a picture of Sugar Ray Robinson, and he has a suit on, right? And he has a pink Cadillac, pink gaiters, and a pink suit, and all pink.
Killing 'em.
And then that's juxtaposed against him standing next to a bunch of other uptown guys, and they all have on grays and blues. And so what that picture says is we have arrived. So what I did with fashion in Harlem is to create a style, what I call Africanized, but is to show we have arrived. You know, to make statements like that. So to take European style and then Africanize it, give it that flavor that we would have. You know, you might see some pink suits, sky blue suits, you know, anything away from what's known as traditional Wall Street look or preppy look. Yeah.
You know, anybody that's kind of dug into your history knows that you did a lot of different things before you opened up Dapper Dan's boutique, and you traveled the world, and you worked for newspapers, and you did so many different things. I want to know, especially because nowadays a lot of people don't go the formal business route before they launch their business, right? They don't necessarily go to business school before they start their own venture. So for you, what was the most valuable training that you got for what became, you know, Dapper Dan's boutique? Was it traveling to Africa? Was it working in other industries? What was your training?
Well, you know, my father came from the South. He only went to the 3rd grade, and he was fascinated with reading, right? And then I read Malcolm X's autobiography, and in it he says that if you want to understand the flower, study the seed. So I said, you know what? I saw my father teach himself how to read. I said, you know what? Reading is the key. So I began to study as much as I can about fashion and things like that, but it wasn't enough. So what I used to do is, it was in the 80s and a lot of manufacturers moving offshore. So I used to go to all the auctions that they had and get there early in the morning, where they were auctioning off sewing machines and things like that. And I would follow all the people who were there, who were experts in the field, to learn about the different sewing machines and teach myself about it. Then I would go to factories where they were producing leather goods or things like that to see how it would work. And there were certain times if I couldn't get the information when the factory closed up and it was garbage outside, I'd go through the garbage and look at different scraps of leather and different places that they were ordering things from. I used everything I could find to get information on how a garment is made. I never went to like runway shows because I wanted to know what how this finished product was made. So I said I want to walk through all the stores and look at all the garments and see, and I wasn't satisfied until I knew exactly what treatment it was. And which is one of the points I like to express to younger people. The palette is in technology. So when I'm going to these shows and I'm seeing, factories and what they do, and I look at it through a mind that comes from Harlem. So I see it different than the way they was presented. So I said, if that's how they're doing, I could take that same machine, that same technology, and apply it in a different way. So I began to experiment with different ink prints so that I can to print on leather. And once I figured out how to print on leather, it opened up a whole new world for me. So as a result of that, I was able to create different types of garments with different types of treatments, and that just led to me expanding on style and using it in a way it has never used before.
So it wasn't any one experience, it was the fact that you were an outsider in many ways that just pushed you to find an alternate way of learning, right? Like
exactly.
When you went to these factories, or when you went to these people who, because they were doing leather work, or they were doing pattern making, or they were using these sewing machines, what was the reaction that they gave to you, a black man from Harlem, with, no, you know, you didn't have the school diploma, the FIT, or anything like that, like what was the reaction that you were getting? Did they welcome you because they saw something in you?
No, one of the things that I did, one of the key things that I did was I always came with a lot of cash. So I wanted to look very impressive. You know, and they might not pay close attention to me till I say, oh, I need 2 bundles of leather, and I pull out a wad of cash. And then all the workers, I would tip all the workers so that they would give me information. And a lot of times I would tell them, you know, give the workers something to see if that the price they're charging me is the same price they're charging everybody else. And they would tell me, they would, you know, let me know about things like this. Sometimes I would wait outside till the worker came off work so that I can get more insight to what they was doing. When I entered the field, I entered it in a negative zone because nobody wouldn't sell to me anyway. I had already traveled throughout Africa and I had some clothes made in Africa, and I remembered, I said, wait a minute, since they won't sell to me, I can open up a store and create my own garments. And I remembered that I had African tailors. So I began to, one day I was downtown and I saw some guys displaying their wares on the street, and I gave them my card. I said, listen, if you know any tailors, come to the store. So that tailor led to one tailor, and then to another tailor, and then as I expanded, I had 11 tailors. I had 12 African seamstresses working in the day, 11 at night, and I was open 24 hours a day for 10 years straight. So when you do customization, everything is individual, so you need as many people as possible to work on it.
Wow. You know, a lot of people, yeah, please. Celebrate that work ethic. I think that's something that a lot of people, especially when you think about startups and entrepreneurs and creators, there is not as much focus on how much work goes into it and how long that work has to take place. But for you, doing that for that long, like when you first opened the boutique, this is 1982, was it an overnight success? Like what happened from day one to, you know, 1 year in? How did you get the business? How did you spread the word?
Oh, well, I believe that fashion is tied into personalities, and I believe that personalities should have the ability to generate excitement. I generated excitement on the street before I was Dapper Dan before I opened Dapper Dan. That's another story you have to read about in the book.
Be clear.
But anyway, so I knew all the street hustlers. I knew all the people who was turning out the money because I come from the street. I come from the poorest section in Harlem. Now, and the biggest problem that I faced was the transitional stage. You know, I'm silk screening and we're using these huge screens. So this is like basic technology. Now we're moving into the 80s and 90s, and you got algorithms and machines running machines, you know. So I had to learn the new technology that would allow me to go into that. I didn't have no computer. I didn't know anything about computers and things like that. And my son, Danny Jr., he said, Danny, raise your hand, Danny. Danny Jr. taught me about Corel Draw. So when I learned Corel Draw, I said, oh. So when I started studying about Corel Draw, I took Corel Draw and started learning how to use that to interface with different type of machinery, with CAD cutters and printers. And so I had to teach myself I had to learn all over again. The benefit of that was, like, when I was silk screening, I had to have, like, the screens were so huge because we had to make 4 prints. I had to have 4 guys just to lift the screen and hold the screen down so to get proper registration. Now with the new technology that I learned, I said, oh wow. So that eliminated everybody, so I could have a computer that would outsource that into peripherals that would print from it.
But talk about the how do you start learning about something when you are already who you are, right? You are already Dapper Dan, a legend, a celebrity. Did it take some humbling to learn technology, to learn about computers and programs that you're mentioning that I've never even heard of? I mean, you know, that can be kind of something that people would just say, oh, I'll just hire somebody to do it, or I'll just do it the old way. You know, what did it take?
Competition, the concept of competition. I had to constantly come out with ideas that required technology that would bring these ideas to fruit. So like when I saw what Louis was doing and I saw what these other companies doing, I said I had to, in order for somebody to want to come to me and buy this from me, I have to be doing something that's so much different from them, that's so much new, that they would be excited to cross that line. And it was like, it got to a point where I did not do knockoffs. I did what I call knockups. So people accepted it, you know. And in order to do that, you have to have something new and something creative, and something that'll make them cross the line. And so that's what made me gravitate towards technology. And I saw technology as the new palette. You know, if an artist is going to paint, the more colors that's available for him, the greater he can render some image.
Right.
So I say, if I can get, the more I learned about the technology, I say that's my palette.
Right.
You know?
A million new cool tools.
Exactly.
At your fingertips. Did you know, do you feel like any of your clients also pushed you to create new things? Like, talk about some of the greatest collaborations or pieces that you made for very unique individuals, whether they were hustlers, or whether they were rappers, or whether they were boxers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a big challenge, but everything stems from the corner guys, the guys who were controlling the money that flowed through the subculture that was in Harlem. So like I would get one crew of guys and they would come through and they say, I want you to dress my whole crew. And he spent $18,000 on him and his friends. The next guy would come through and ask me how much he spent. You know, because it was an ego thing. Yeah. I tell him what he spent, and he said, okay, I'm gonna spend $22,000. And the next guy would come through and say, how much did he spend? So it ended up like
and then when they compete with each other, then how do you push it to the next level? Was it like, okay, well, if he's doing leather, I want to do reptile. If he's doing reptile, I want fur.
It's the mix. If he have Gucci, he say, I want Valley. Or I want Fendi. I want my whole crew to have Fendi. And then the head guy, he would say, do my car. So I would do his whole car. Because to generate excitement, since I was open 24 hours a day, I had a Mercedes-Benz, and I had the whole Mercedes-Benz interior done, you know, Gucci. And then I had, which the next popular thing was a MCM, so I took my MCM Jeep and I had that completely MCM, and I would sit down there, and you're talking 1984 now, and I would leave that in front of the store 24 hours, so that would generate excitement. People come buying buses and cab, you know, and it started out with the subculture in Harlem, and then it just, next thing I know, Philly is coming, then Connecticut is coming, Detroit is coming, and Chicago is coming. So
where was the furthest that they were coming from? Where was somebody they just
California.
California.
Yes.
All the way.
Yeah. There's one thing about people in subculture with money. They always together. They know each other, and they know what each other is doing, even before social media, because they would see each other at the fights, you know, at the, you know, baseball, at all the all-star games and everything. So that's what generated the popularity.
Can you even imagine that MCM Jeep with Instagram in play? The crowds. It would be lines down the block, people trying to just take a picture of it. And was there ever something that you had to say no? Was there ever a request or collaboration that you just tried to make, or, you know?
You know what? The biggest challenge I had was what we call punk out. Like gangsters would come in and they would say, listen, man, I need this outfit and I need it tomorrow. So I said, we got an arrangement I call punk out. So if I don't have it by the next day, he get it free.
Oh.
But if I got it by the next day, he pay me double. So that's why I stayed open 24 hours a day, so that I can cater to those type of people with that kind of money and that kind of ego that they wanted it, and when they wanted it right away.
Wow. So the answer to the question is no. You always got it done.
No, I accepted every challenge. The biggest problem I had is guys wanted me to create outfits for them and then say nobody else could have it.
Oh.
You know, so I had to tax them a whole lot because now I got to freeze a particular style that's
Right.
popular. And these are the heads of these organizations, so what they wear, everybody else wanted to wear. And I had a thing where I had the lesser and the greater. So, you know, the number of LVs that you had on your outfit determined your status in the group.
That is,
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what that competition was like, especially, you know, if there was a big fight at the Garden or a big game, or if it was New Year's and everybody had to come up and outdo each other, and they all knew that they were coming to you. A lot of egos to balance. Nowadays, I kind of want to focus on the landscape of what you were doing and how you think it's changed. So, you know, along with being a pioneer, you've also been active throughout many different eras, and you've seen a lot of the changes, and you've changed with them by learning the technology. What do you think is the biggest difference for people in the fashion game now?
Well, you know, you cannot separate fashion from culture. And the basis for what I do is to study. First, I was a part of the culture. Then I paid close attention to exactly how the culture influences them, right? So I knew the mentality of the hustlers. And as that shifted to the rappers, right? And then they had a certain, like the core of rap was coming out of New York, so there was a certain mentality. Then as rap began to grow, the personalities and the cultural outlook began to change. So I had to listen to the lyrics, talk to the rappers to see what they wanted to look like. Like if you see some of the things I did, like for Jungle Brothers, when they were involved in, I would do the red, green, and black. And then you had some guys using Islam. I would use the Islamic symbol. So as people's mind begin to change, I begin to study their cultural changes and flow with that.
But that's, you know, just to expand on that, that's something that if you aren't part of the culture or you don't make yourself immersed in the culture, that is where you can really get in trouble if you create and aren't, you know, cognizant. If you don't respect the culture that you're trying to sell to, right? So if there's something that you can say to people in fashion now, which I think that's a lesson that a lot of them are learning.
The big controversy right now I find in fashion is, especially with what I have to deal with, is like being an African American. There's this thing about manhood. So you have to address issues with manhood, and then the styles are shifting. So you got to accommodate these shifting mentalities, like and this challenge that's going on. Now a lot of the old school guys are saying like, wow, the shift is too much.
Oh, interesting. So are we just talking about from baggy jeans to skinny pants, or what are we talking about?
We're talking about, okay, the borders of what we identify as fashion are expanding. You know, so when a lot of guys get confused about where they go and they get limited, so they go over and they're like feminized, and then that's not a problem. But with certain sections of the culture, they rebel against it.
Right.
So now you got these different personalities that you got to. So now they really has gotten to a point where different rap groups and different rap genres are leaning toward the other side, and the other ones are rebelling against the other side, and so it's really complicated. So you have to really know your cultural base. It's not like when it first started. You have to know your cultural base in order to be effective in how you approach it. You know.
Miss Info, is it okay if we take a couple questions? Because we
Yeah. I think I'm gonna say one last thing to you, and then we're gonna open up the floor to some questions. We don't have a lot of time for a bunch of questions, but maybe 3.
We have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Oh, yikes. Okay. Obviously, we could sit here all night and talk to Dapper Dan and glean from his wisdom, but I want to talk about one last thing. You moving forward, what do you have planned, and what can you tell us about your plans? Because, you know, a lot of us have seen how brands looked at your classic work, definitely, you know, appropriated different elements of it, and we're all eager to see that you are getting your credit for that and also being included in the future of these brands.
Okay. So in order for me to address that question, I have to show you to discuss what my mission is. The culture that I come out of, there's a dark side and a light side of the culture. You know, there's a positive and negative of that culture. So what I hope to do is to have a strong enough influence to push that culture into a positive area. And like at one time I was, when the gangster rap came about and people were coming to me and asking me to make outfits out of flags, you know, that they fly, I refused to do that, you know, and so my intention is to direct the culture as much as I can into a positive zone. And like one of the outstanding rappers that I have now, who's spearheading that, is ASAP. You know, people have to realize that fashion, everybody is making a statement, you know, and I'm not going to be a part of people who are making a statement that's on the dark side of the culture. So my mission is to expand on the positive side of the culture and make a difference, you know. So my book will address that, and ASAP Ferg and some young rappers who I'm trying to get to turn this thing around, you know, because it's really gotten out of hand. The years that I was in the underground, it expanded. You know, people forget that, you know, what this is all about. But that's my mission, and that's the area that I plan to move into.
So we'll be able to not only support the book, but there will be a sort of resurgence of your line and a lot of other things that we can all sort of see as moving the culture in a positive way, the way that you want to.
Exactly.
That's really exciting. Okay, I think we have time for.
We have like one question.
question.
We gotta.
Who's gonna pick it?
I'm gonna
Because
take
we
this
barely
guy right
see.
here.
Hi, Dapper Dan. I'm Jason Engelstein, and my question regards getting into the industry and also broadening the base. What would you say to people, both that want to look a certain way or make a statement without that much money, and also want to start in the industry without that much money?
Okay. The question is, what would I say to people who want to look a certain way?
Get into the fashion business without a lot of funding.
They want to be fashionable, they want to look fashionable without being able to buy the brands, for example. Or at the same time, what would you say to people who want to start without that many resources?
Oh, well, the second part of the question is easy. You got to understand your cultural base and where you want to start at. Then you can always modify that later on, but you have to start with a base. One young guy that I'm dealing with now, I told him to generate excitement. You generate excitement around who you are and what you're doing, and then and people catch on to that. So that's the way I approached it. And in terms of any other way to put, like, a lot of young guys now don't have the benefits in certain ways that I had. The rappers was just coming out, so I had access to all the rappers. And the young creative people today, they don't have access because all the major brands have snatched up all of our main entertainment. So our outlet to get noticed now is limited. So to come along with a fashion brand now, in terms of technology, you have a great advantage. In terms of your access to people who are important that could really expand your brand is very limited now, because the big European brands have taken notice to the culture, and as it emerged, they just snatch them all up, and that's a big problem now. And so people would take them. The artists would, like, they will. You could buy them and pay them to wear something, but they'll wear it on TV or something like that there. But when you see them interact in the public, they ain't gonna have it on. So it's really a complicated thing now. But my solution to that problem is to generate something and make something exciting enough that they would want to wear, different enough that they would want to wear, because my philosophy is that there is no such thing as ugly fashion. You know, it's just people who control fashion, you know, they are the ones that determine what's ugly and what's not ugly. You know, there's no such thing as ugly. Ugly is how you act, not what you wear.
That's a great,
Yeah.
I just want to thank Dapper Dan for, dropping all these gems on it.
Dapper Dan. This is Fiorentino on Hairstreamtv. Next is the Creator Awards. So looking forward to that. That's starting shortly. I'll videotape and you can check out everything on my channel. I did have a good time. I ate, I drank, I danced. I watched lots of good music and dancing. Cool event. I highly recommend it for all you entrepreneurs out there. Okay.